If you look at the communion letters, these were like hundreds and hundreds of letters that were sent to Whitley Strieber after.
Oh, I was reading that not long ago. Yeah.
And his deceased wife, Anne Strieber, edited these letters. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Anne, his wife, noticed was how many accounts there were of people who witnessed deceased individuals during their abduction with the Greys.
Yeah.
Cases where, for example, let's say somebody's Uncle Harry died and they didn't know it yet. Nobody had told them. Like it happened the night before and they hadn't gotten the phone call yet. And then they're abducted. And during their abduction, they meet Uncle Harry and he's with the Greys. And he tells them, hey, you know, I just want to say goodbye. You know, tell your dad, you know, like everything's good with me, whatever. And then they come back with this information after their abduction. And then the next day, let's say they get the phone call informing them of their uncle's death, right? So there are many such cases.
Have you heard ones where people saw the vision and then the person was alive later?
Yes. and so, look, I mean, it's pretty horrifying when you go through the archive of these cases, because what it suggests is that the same entities that are involved with, you know, close encounters with what are presumed to be aliens are actually also managing the bureaucratic machinery of the afterlife in some, you know, absurdly Kafkaesque way.
Yeah, that's how it sounds exactly. That's what it reminded. I'm like, what, this never ends? You never get out of it.
And, you know, there are abduction cases that are basically fuck ups where the wrong person is taken. And then,
I've never heard that. That's interesting. What do you mean?
And they take this hapless individual and eventually they find out that, like, no, they were supposed to take the guy next door on the same street. And so they drop the guy back off and then try not to bother him again. Well, there are similar cases that involve the afterlife. There was one where this poor Indian guy, Durga Jatov, died in a hospital. And I mean, he was really, you know, flatlined for a long time, presumed dead. His family started mourning over him. But eventually he came back to life. I forget whether he was resuscitated or he just sort of spontaneously, you know, his vitals started up again. And Jatov comes back with a story about how he was taken into hell by demons, you know, the Hindu hell. And
how's the Hindu hell? You explain the Hindu hell a little more.
Well, according, you know, by Jatov's account, it wasn't a very pleasant place because as soon as he was taken there, he was dismembered. Oh. And
I thought it was going to be a poop festival, but that sounds worse.
He saw how the demons, okay, consulted with their superiors and found out that they had taken the wrong guy. So then the demons take Jatov to where they have a collection of dismembered legs and they have him pick out his own and they reattach his legs. Now here, get this. When he wakes up again in the hospital, right, his family and the doctors notice that he has scar marks right where his legs had been severed at the knee in this hell realm that he experienced during the NDE.
Okay, because I heard a very similar story to that, and I'm curious if this has this feature. It almost sounds like the girl when I was in high school and everybody had a girl that put a mechanical toothbrush in her pussy. And that was every school I went to, they had that story. I'm like, did that happen? But this guy was an American guy. He said he was taken into some hell realm like that, and they were human pig hybrids. Okay, it was like a UFO abduction that fit no category, and they were he said it didn't hurt, but they were dismembering him and showing him. Yeah, and then he woke up and one of his feet was bigger than the other one, like they put a wrong size foot on. Is that like one story being mutated, or is that a repeating story of what is that?
There's a lot of absurd, darkly weird shit like that going on that you encounter both in the close encounters literature and also in NDE accounts, and they intersect in really disturbing ways. So I'll give you a quick summary of one particularly disturbing case, and then I'll tell you theoretically what I think is going on behind this kind of weird shit. And that case is Betty Andreasen Luca's abduction from I believe it was the late 1960s, sometime in the 1960s.
I remember her name, but I don't remember the abduction.
Yeah, so these Greys walked through the walls and came into her house and froze her whole family, except for her and her oldest daughter, and they abducted Betty, and they didn't take her somewhere into outer space. They apparently took her to some place underwater that seemed to be on Earth.
Oh, yeah, I kind of remember. Okay, yeah.
And she met so the Greys are the ones taking her, right? And oddly enough, they took her out of the house the same way as they came in. In other words, the door didn't even open. They were able to somehow move her right through the wall.
Okay.
And so they take her to this place that seems like some vast undersea facility. And the Greys bring her over to these tall, like 8 foot tall, maybe beautiful, blonde, Nordic looking people.
Right.
And these fellows who looked like they could be Swedish supermodels told Betty, look, we're the angels. We work for God, and the Greys work for us. And what these little Greys do is basically they go around recording people's deeds. They make records of people's lives.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the near-death experience literature, it jives with the accounts of many, many people that during their NDE, they had their life played back to them.
Right, the life review where you got Jesus like, hey, I got a DVD of your life or whatever we could watch. And I just saw that, dude. But,
Betty walked over to this huge mirror-shaped thing, like a doorway or a mirror from out of which light was streaming. And some of these Greys floated through this opening and went toward the light. And the tall, beautiful blonde people said to her, oh, that's God, pointing toward the light. And you can't go in there yet. You're not ready to go in there yet. And that thing sent Jesus into the world, and he's going to be coming back soon.
Right. Okay. Do you want it to be angels and Nephilims, or do you want it to be the Greys, or like God sold us to Disney and Disney's testing out endings on us? Is how it feels to me.
Well, the which ending you like better, choose your own adventure kind of model might actually wind up applying here in the end. So let me lay out the technological singularity real briefly. It's the idea that there is this upward slope to technological development throughout the course of human history. But at a certain point, you have technological developments like, let's say, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so forth. Nanotechnology would be another one that become increasingly convergent. In other words, breakthroughs in one area reinforce developments in another area. And each of these technologies is so revolutionary that their convergence will lead to what they call a singularity, which is like the event horizon of a black hole. It's a point on that chart of the upward sloping, exponentially increasing technological development where the curve becomes a spike. And you cannot predict future technological developments from past ones beyond that point, because let's say AI and genetic engineering will converge in a way that produces a superhuman form of life that is then furthering its own technological developments in ways that our human minds cannot even comprehend.
What about this way? By keeping all of us far behind it on purpose all the time while it's already happened a while ago.
Exactly. So look, I think there's tremendous evidence that I've gone through in several of my books for a singularity level human civilization in the very distant past. Massive architectural, structural engineering that we can barely reproduce today. Like, for example, the platform at Baalbek in Lebanon, the Osirion at Abydos in Egypt.
What's the Osirion?
The Osirion is a series of extremely high precision, like laser precision cut, huge megaliths that are, have 2 colonnades. There are 2 sets of these basically rectangular columns, and they're on a platform, and there's a trench around the platform that looks as if it had water in it at one point.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This whole structure at Abydos in Egypt is under 8,000 years of sedimentation. So for 8,000 years, it's been being covered up by the earth. There's no way that it was built underground. Nobody could have moved these blocks in any way we understand, even above ground, let alone underground. So this is, again, evidence that interlocks with, let's say, Baalbek's trilithon platform in Lebanon, where each of the stones is 1,300 tons. They've been lifted 40 feet into the air and put onto smaller stones. clearly these structures were engineered by a civilization that in some ways was in advance of our own.
Right.
And there's actually no reason to think it was aliens, quote unquote,
Oh, yeah, right.
non-human life form, because every single culture on the earth has myths telling us that people built these things. Tall, beautiful looking people built these things. So what that suggests is that the technological singularity already took place at some point in the distant past.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And whoever's behind the UFO phenomenon, and whoever might also be managing what we think of as the afterlife, is preventing us from reaching the same technological singularity. That, for example, the reset that resulted in the destruction of Atlantis was an attempt to prevent that culture from reaching the same singularity. And it should be cause for concern, because within the next 20 years or so, the convergence of all these technologies like AI, cybernetics, genetic engineering, and so forth, are bringing us to the point where we are also going to have the kind of super intelligence that these people did in the distant past. And it will give us a kind of parity, a kind of put us on an equal footing with whoever's behind the UFO phenomenon. Now, if they're manipulating and controlling us in some way, obviously they're not going to want that to happen. So they're probably going to try to engineer some catastrophic reset on the planet to put hundreds of years between us and the singularity again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I yesterday when I was doing what do you call it, Fighter and the Kid,